Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to your Ed Puzzle homework tonight, dealing with explaining lesson 10.8. So just like all of our other explaining lessons, we're going to be working through the book together so that we really understand what it's asking us to do. So if you have not done so already, please turn to lesson 10.8 in your math workbooks. That's page 378 and 379. And like always, make sure as we're going through and filling things in together, you're following along and doing that as well. That way, when it's your turn to do it on your own, you know what it's asking you to do. All right, and our learning target for tonight is I can compare and order tenths and hundredths. So again, we're going to be thinking back to the idea of decimals, which we've been talking about for a few weeks now, and how we can compare them, figuring out how they're the same and how they're different, but also order them from least to greatest, greatest to least, or putting them into an order based on what the rule is telling us to do. All right, so we've seen this slide before in another video we've done when it came to comparing decimals. Again, we can compare numbers based on their place value. So when I look at my numbers up here, I'm trying to figure out which one of these is bigger or which one of these is less, or they might be equal. Like we always say, we're going to start in the biggest places the numbers have to compare first. Well, I know this biggest place over here is the thousands place, and the biggest place in this number is the thousands place. So that's where I'm going to start for both of these. However, since both of these have a 4, that means both of these 4 stand for 4,000, that's not going to help me figure out which one of these is bigger or less than or equal to. I have to go to the next place. So now I'm going to go to the hundreds place. I see a 3 in this hundreds place, but I also see a 3 in this hundreds place. So just like I did with the thousands, I've got to go to the next place over to help me figure this out. And that's where I find something that's finally different. I see a 1 in this tens place, and I see a 4 in this tens place. So now I can compare these to figure out which one is bigger. What's bigger, 1 10 or 4 tens? Yeah, 4 tens is bigger, so that tells you the number over here on the right, 4,342, is going to be bigger than 4,312. And I really don't even have to look at the ones place because the first place that I come across that is different in these numbers is going to help me figure out which one is greater than or less than or equal to. Now, remember too, we really need to pay attention to what the numbers' places are. So for example, if these were the two numbers I was comparing, okay, even though the first digit in this number over here on the left is a 4, and the first digit in this number over here on the right is a 7, that does not mean this number over here is greater, because this 7 is in the hundreds place where this 4 is in the thousands place. My number over here on the right does not have a digit in the thousands place, which means since there's nothing out here in the thousands place, this number with the 4 in the thousands place is going to be bigger. And again, that's stuff we've talked about earlier in the year. Now, that idea of place value can help us when we're comparing decimals. Again, we've got two numbers here, 2 wholes and 7 tenths, and 2 wholes and 4 tenths. Again, I'm going to look at the biggest places first. That would be the ones place in both of these numbers. They're both a 2, so that's not going to help me figure this out. So I have to go to the next place over, which is the tenths place. Here I've got 7 tenths, and here I've got 4 tenths. What's bigger, 7 tenths or 4 tenths? Yeah, 7 tenths is bigger, so I know my number on the left is going to be bigger than my number on the right. Again, you've got to pay attention to your place value, though, because again, if this was the number we were comparing, I'm not going to have to look at the tenths place in this comparison because the ones places are different. I don't have to look into the tenths to figure out which of these numbers is greater than or less than, because I can do that by looking in the biggest place that they have, which is the ones place. And I know that 6 ones is more than 2 ones. So keep that in mind tonight as we move forward, okay? Also, when it comes to ordering with decimals, so ordering numbers with decimal points in them, again, it's the same thing we just did. You need to look at all of your place value spots to really help you. I know the biggest place value spot in all 3 of these numbers is the ones place. This ones place has a 2, this ones place has a 2, this ones place has a 3. 3 is the greatest ones place in this comparison. So I know this is going to be my greatest number. So now I really just have to compare these other two. I got rid of one of them because I was able to figure out it was the greatest, or I could have done the least first two. So I know my ones places are the same. So now I need to look into the tens place. Excuse me, the tenths place. My first tenths place here has a 3 in it. This tenths place has a 2. Which one of these numbers is going to be the least? Yeah, 2 wholes and 23 hundredths is going to be the least. And I already know the greatest, which means this number here is going to fall into the middle. Okay, nice job. So again, what we're really talking about in this video is you have to look carefully at your place value spots in order to compare and order numbers with decimals. All right. And if you have not turned to page 378 and 379 yet, please do so now. We're going to be looking at page 378 to start, down at the bottom. This is one of the first things you have to do today, step up number 1. It says write less than or greater than to make each statement true. Use what you know about equivalence to help you. So use what we've talked about to help you. So if I'm looking here at A, I'm comparing 5 tenths with 8 hundredths. So again, I'm going to look at my biggest places first. The ones place here is the biggest, and the ones place here is the biggest. They're both zeros. So now I have to go to the tenths. This tenths place is a 5. This tenths place is a 0. So I don't have to go any farther because I have found a place that's different. I know 5 tenths is more than 8 hundredths because 5 tenths is more than 0 tenths. I want you to go through and solve the rest of those now. Nice job. We'll go over those later on. And the other thing you've got to do today is number 2 over here for your step up. And it says over here for your directions, it says these 8 decimal fractions are between 1 whole and 4 wholes. So you know these decimal fractions or these decimal numbers are going to be somewhere on this number line. Use the data in the table to answer question 2. So you're going to be using these numbers to help you down here. Use the number line and what you know about equivalence to help you. So again, if I'm looking at step up number 2, letter A, I'm going to write the number from the table. So S goes with 3 and 12 hundredths, so I write that in. U goes with 2 and 3 hundredths. And then I need to complete the comparison with less than or greater than. Well, what I know when I look at these numbers, I can use the number line to help me. I know that 3 and 12 hundredths is going to be a little bit past 3 wholes. And I know 2 and 3 hundredths is going to be a little bit past 2 wholes. Well, I know my purple line is going a lot farther than my green line, so that means 3 and 12 hundredths is more than 2 and 3 hundredths. Again, I could still use that idea of place value too without looking at the number line. My biggest place in this number is the ones place. My biggest place in this number is the ones place. S has a 3. U has a 2. 3 wholes is bigger than 2 wholes, and we still get the same answer. Okay, so again, I want you to finish working on problem number 2 on your own. Nice job with those 2. We'll go over those ones later on. Have a good night. Make smart choices.